All right. Hello, everyone. So it's actually my pleasure to be invited to this event, and thanks for the invitation. I was initially wondering, what should I be talking about for just 1 hour of the time. That I can talk a lot about doing software development in big international companies. But it could be quite tedious. So I think I can probably make it a little bit more fun, focusing on the things that you might not pay attention to, as an engineer. However, those things are actually quite important, sometimes even more important than your hard skills in order to be successful, working for international companies. That's the culture stuff, the culture for the company, the culture for the engineering, community in the company. So of course, I also will talk about some of the interesting stuff we are working on in at Alibaba and Aliexpress Russia. So let's get started. Hopefully, after this lecture, you will find something useful when you are looking for opportunities at those companies in the future. Next, please. So a little bit about myself. So I grew up in China. I had my bachelor and master degree actually in material science. So then I went to the States for my PhD in physics, but end up getting the PhD in computer science. Then after that, I joined Amazon, in 2007 as an engineer. I worked in Seattle for almost 10 years, before I went back to China, working for Alibaba. So in 2019, I joined Aliexpress Russia as their CTO and stayed there until now. A little bit about Aliexpress Russia. It was part of the Alibaba, the Aliexpress global business of the Alibaba group. In 2019, Alibaba formed a joint venture with VK, with USM and RDIF. Now we are the largest e-commerce platform in the cross-border sector. And if you include domestic sector, we are probably the third largest in the market. You can see that in the year of 2020, our GMV is about 229 billion rubles. We also have about 29 million monthly users, over 146 million SPUs or items on our website. So basically, you can find almost everything on Aliexpress Russia. Next, please. So now, before we look into the IT process of big companies, let's first understand what defines a company. In other words, when you heard about Amazon or Alibaba, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? People might have different opinions, but I believe, it is the mission and the core values of the company that defines its identity. Now let's look at the missions and core values for Amazon, for Alibaba, and for Aliexpress Russia. Amazon's mission, it's probably very well known, is to become the Earth's most customer-centric company. It also defines 16 leadership principles. The first one is customer first. Amazon indeed is very customer-centric. They always put customers' benefits on top of their, any decision-making process, including their product design, including their business operations, including their IT processes, and even their, employees' performance review. They use those leadership principles to evaluate them. So I think that's actually one of the key reasons why Amazon is so successful. If we look at Alibaba's mission, it is to make it easy to do business everywhere. So Alibaba's core customers are sellers. Alibaba has 6 core values, which are quite interesting. I will not read it here, but I suggest all of you read it when you have a chance. It really, it is an attitude, how people should work and live as employees of Alibaba. Now for Aliexpress Russia, we were born from Alibaba, but we also adapted ourselves to the local culture. Our mission is to become the leading e-commerce platform in Russia and the CIS country. We also have 6 core values, which embodies our culture. That's ownership, move fast, never give up, transparency, diversity, and user happiness. So you will often find that the culture of a company really reflects a lot of the personalities of the founders. Jeff Bezos, who is the founder of Amazon, he's actually a person who really cares about his customers. He has an email, which is jeff@amazon.com, that everyone can write to. And he reads those emails actually daily and respond randomly. If there are any customer complaints in the email that he is concerned about, he will send a famous question mark to his team, and the problem will be investigated and also solved in the highest priority. In Alibaba, Jack Ma is also a person who cares about customers, and he is an idealist. He once said that he creates Alibaba not to make money, but to help others being successful. So you can see from the core values, he puts actually shareholders at the last position behind customers and employees. He also believes that trust will make things much simpler. Next, please. Now, let's look at some basic facts of the tech orgs at Amazon, Alibaba, and Aliexpress Russia. Amazon and Alibaba, they are both monsters, with big tech org. They probably has more than 30,000 engineers worldwide. Aliexpress Russia, we have 600 plus today. Most of them are in Moscow, and next year we will grow to around 800 at least. In terms of the tech org, Amazon doesn't really have a group CTO. There is a tech VP who is managing the platform teams. And then each of the business org, they have their own tech teams. Alibaba, there is a group CTO and a bunch of CTOs for different business units, and who reports both to the group CTO as well as the business CEOs. At Aliexpress Russia, we have 2 CTOs, me and Mr. Olaf. We split our responsibilities by domains, and we also have some shared responsibilities. Big companies, when we talk about technologies, they have a lot of proprietary technologies. At both Amazon and Alibaba, Java is the the main language, but there are lots of other languages you can use. Each team can freely choose any language they prefer. Both Amazon and Alibaba uses the hybrid cloud. Amazon AWS and Alibaba's Ali Cloud, they are the top cloud platforms. Basically, they are eating their own dog food. Amazon is basically a service-oriented architecture where there are thousands or even tens of thousands of microservices. Alibaba mostly adopting a middle platform architecture. There is a network of services constitutes what they call a middle platform, where other services and websites can be built on top of this platform. At Aliexpress Russia, we actually have 2 sets of technologies. We inherited the classic Alibaba technologies. We also have a full set of local technologies built locally. by our team in Moscow using OpenStack softwares. It is free basically for us to choose any framework we want to use, as long as we follow the best practices. Next, please. So for the development process, CI/CD is basically today the industry standard, but the practice may differ slightly among those companies. Agile is always the preferred option for software development. Amazon use the Scrum process, which where each team will define its own sprint. Both Alibaba and AER, their agile process are quite informal, actually. Sometimes you don't even have a Scrum Master. People just pick up projects from the backlog and they start working on that, without even going through any planning at all. So as far as tech planning is concerned, all the three companies, they use the OKR process. Both Amazon and Alibaba has a fiscal year starting from April 1st to end of March next year. At Amazon, they do a very lengthy and comprehensive yearly planning starting from June to October. It's called the operational planning stage 1, OP2. Through this process, they generate not only the plan for next year, but also a 3-year plan. Then in February, they will adjust the plan based on their business performance during Q3, which is the busiest season of the year. And during this OP1 process, there are both top-down and bottoms-up initiatives. For tops-down, there are ideas from the CEOs, from Jeff Bezos, from SVPs, from directors. For bottoms-up, each team, the engineers, the product managers, business operators, they come up with their own ideas of projects. Then they have meetings, they organize meetings to review those initiatives and put those ideas into either the next year planning or the 3-year plan. So that's how the OP1 process works. At Alibaba, they also do yearly planning, but this process is much simpler, much faster. It probably will be done in just 1 month. Then those projects or targets will be break down into quarterly and monthly targets, and they track and modify the plan in a monthly and quarterly basis. So what I like Amazon the most is the practice that almost every tech team will reserve 20 to 30% of their time for pure technical work. We as engineers know that there are always technical debts, right? Those technical debts are accumulated during execution of any projects. So our services and architectures require constant maintenance and cleanup. It's like owning a car or a house. You need to maintain it from time to time. You need to clean it to making sure it's functioning stably. And we also need time as engineer to code something that's fun, right? Just for fun. So we view ourselves as artists, right? Not workers. Next, please. So now talking about the engineering culture, it is probably the most important thing that when you choose to work for a company, because it defines the common beliefs and values that will guide our behaviors. If you don't share those values, then probably you shouldn't go there. Engineering culture probably differs dramatically across different industries, but no matter which industry you're in, I believe the best engineering culture should be able to help the company achieving its business targets. Now, for e-commerce companies, the most important job of the engineering team is first to improve efficiency. Efficiency of business operations, efficiency for acquiring customers, efficiency for developing products, you name it. Now, in order for us to achieve the best efficiency, there are basically 4 things our engineering team should focus on. First, hiring and developing the best. Anyhow, you can only achieve the best with the best person you have. Second, you should always pursue engineering excellence. This means follow good software development practices, do code reviews, do design reviews, do unit tests, do CI/CDs, do test-driven developments, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, focus on automation. Do automation as much as you can. It is the best way to improve efficiency and avoid any mistakes. And fourthly, you should have as few approval workflows or processes as you can, and get rid of those approval workflows or unnecessary processes. It will just slow things down, and it also shows distrust among our colleagues. Now, the second goal for the engineering team is innovation, because innovation keeps the company alive, right? Gives the company the best products they can present for the customers. How do you encourage innovations? First, you need to create an environment that frees people's minds. Set no boundaries, set low limitations, encourage your engineers to try new things without worrying about being penalized if something goes wrong. And secondly, encourage learning and sharing. You should never stop learning, and you should try to share your knowledges with your colleagues, as much as you can. And thirdly, you should try to give engineers time to try new things and to hack stuff. We all have a dream to become a hacker, right? So we do a lot of hackathons. And the fourth one, diversity, I believe, is a good way for is good for innovation. The great minds may collide in a good way that will bring the sparkles for creative ideas. So of the 3 companies I have worked on, Amazon probably has the best engineering culture that that meets majority of the principles above. Alibaba and Aliexpress Russia, of course, also have some great cultures. Alibaba is actually quite heavy on processes. They treat the stability of the system as their top priority, given its scale of the business. As Aliexpress Russia, we actually softened a lot on the processes, and we honor moving fast more than the stability of the system. Next, please. Next, I'm going to talk about localization, which basically is how we transform Aliexpress Russia from part of Alibaba into a company with localized technologies. Next, please. So what is localization and why we have to do it? It's simple with a few questions. Imagine that you have 90% of employees in China, who are trying to serve 100 Russian customers. Will that work? Imagine all product and tech development will happen outside of Russia. Will that work? Of course, they will not work, right? So that's why we need to localize them. We need to build local teams with local technologies. Amazon's, although Alibaba's technology is fantastic, we all know that, but it's actually quite hard to use by local engineers for different reasons. There are language barriers, there are culture conflicts, there are data laws prohibiting some of the sharing of data and technologies. And Alibaba uses the proprietary technologies, which is often not useful outside of the company. So for all those reasons, we're going to develop our local technologies. However, we still have our cross-border business, which is very important. for Aliexpress Russia. It is still the biggest part of the business and also is our competitive advantage. We need systems, we need services that serves our cross-border sellers, serves the cross-border payments, logistics, and so on and so forth. So the solution seems to be that we have to deal with customer experience, including sellers experience locally, local sellers experience. And also we try to integrate with data and services from cross-border section. That's how we are going to do localization. Next, please. Now, here is a very high level architecture of Aliexpress Russia. Basically, it has 4 layers, which are quite typical for any e-commerce platform. We have the presentation layer with websites and apps. Then we have the SaaS layer, which contains most of the business logics for our customers and sellers. And we have the PaaS layer, which are basically platform services. And finally, we have the IaaS layer with networks, data centers, cloud native services served by AliCloud. Next, please. Next. All right. So everything initially is on Alibaba technology. To localize, then we start from the presentation layer. We forked the website and apps. Now we have in the .ru domain and the AER apps in the App Store. Then we start building all the SaaS services with OpenStack software in our local data centers, one by one, and for local to local transactions. When we need data from the cross-border section, for example, we need item information from a cross-border sellers, we make a service call to AliCloud services to retrieve those information. So the overall architecture looks like this. On the right side, we still have our services from Alibaba, providing the data and services on cross-border. On the left side, we have the full set of local services built from scratch, almost from scratch on OpenStack. And they are communicating through a gateway with cross-border services. You know, it looks like very simple and straightforward. Of course, there are a lot of complexities under this design. Next, please. So what are the challenges, right, for localization? You will always find problems with latencies, problems with scalability, with stability, with security, with routing issues, with data issues. There are lots of issues will happen with localization. However, you know, we are engineers. We're trained to handle those complexities, right? So anything technical is not really a problem, and we can always find a solution. There is something that is beyond our natural capability to solve as engineers. That's the culture conflict. So Aliexpress Russia used to have 90% of Chinese when it was established 2 years ago, and 10% of Russian. But now it is 90% of Russian and 10% Chinese, with a couple of guys from Germany and Australia. So can you imagine how Russian and Chinese, they work together? Are they going to get along very well, or are they going to, you know, work very poorly together? So you might think, well, they share a lot in common, right? They are, you know, both communist parties, and the governments and peoples, they have great relationships. But you will be surprised once you learn the truth. So there is a great book written by Professor Aaron Meyer from INSEAD Business School. It is named The Culture Map. Basically, Aaron defines 7 to 8 dimensions that reflect the culture differences around how people from different culture communicating with each other and how they evaluating each other, how they need a team, how they make decisions, how they build in trusts, how they make schedules, and how they disagree with each other. So if you plot all those dimensions of two countries in the same graph, you got the culture map. So here I showed you the culture map for China and Russia. As you can see that Chinese and Russian, they differ in some dimensions and agreed in others. For example, when we're talking about giving negative feedbacks, Russian tends to be very direct and bold, but Chinese try to be soft and diplomatic. And when disagree with each other, Russian is very confrontational, while Chinese will often try to avoid any direct confrontations. However, when it comes to build trusts, both countries are relationship oriented. So my Russian co-CTO, Mr. Orlov, once after a big argument between the teams, he came to me, he said, Frank, don't worry about, let's go to a bar, let's grab a bottle of vodka. Nothing cannot be solved with a bottle of vodka. If not, then give us 2 bottles. So that's why, Chinese and Russians, they are, focused on relationship buildings a lot. That's in common between them. Next, please. All right, I will not talk about every dimensions because of time, but let's look at probably the most important one, communication. Aaron defines the styles of communication into 2 types, low context and high context. The people from low context culture tends to communicate with precision, simplicity, and be very clear, while people from high context culture tend to communicate in a way that is sophisticated, nuanced and layered. What does it mean? People from high context culture, they assume that other people they are talking to shares the same background as you. So he or she can understand a lot of the underlying meanings of your speech. Now, if you look at this graph, both Chinese and Russian seem to be on the high context side. Is this good? Now let's look at one simple choice question. Which one has the greatest likelihood of misunderstanding? A low context person communicating with another low context person. B, a low context person communicating with a high context person. And C, high context person communicating with another high context person. So which one will cause misunderstanding? You might choose B, right? Low context communicating with high context. But however, the correct answer is C. When the 2 persons who are communicating, they are from different high context culture, it is most likely a misunderstanding will rise. Why? Because they share different background. Now let's look at the graph on the left side. This will help you understand. This graph shows the difference between Americans and Eastern Europeans when they express opinions on something. Here you can treat Americans as Chinese and Eastern Europeans as Russians. When something is a junk, Chinese would say, well, it is okay, it is a good start. When something is actually okay, Chinese would say, it is pretty good. And when something is actually good, Chinese would say, wow, this is awesome. But Russian will treat anything less than good as garbage. So that explains, now you understand why it is so hard to work between the Russians and Chinese. But don't worry, Aliexpress Russia is different, right? Because we have learned all those lessons in the past 2.5 years. Now everyone is now either a Russian Chinese or Chinese Russian. So we are harmonized like a family. Next, please. The other difference I want to highlight is the communication, is to communicate negative feedbacks. Russian tends to be very direct and bluntly, as I said before, but Chinese are more soft and diplomatic. Let's look at this example, this conversation between a Chinese manager who is talking to his Russian subordinate for performance reviews, the Chinese manager would say, "Hi, Frank, about your performance last year, you have done a great job. You complete work on time, you get along well with the team, and people really liked you. Thank you very much for your contribution. But there are things you might want to focus on a little bit. You need to manage your time better. And sometimes people complain about the quality of the product you deliver. So after this message, what do you think about Frank's performance? Is it good? Probably not that good. When your Chinese manager are talking to you like that, you probably should focus on things after the but. So here are some hints when delivering negative messages to a Chinese person. First, don't do that in front of a group. And second, try to blur the messages. Slowly deliver the message over a period of time and choose some informal settings. And you should start by probably focus on the good. And when you try to deliver negative feedbacks to a Russian, first, don't try to do that like then. And second, be very specific, but use some downgraders to soften the message. Next, please. Well, at the last section, I want to talk about briefly Alibaba's international business and the scale of the systems they build to support such international expansion. Some of the technologies are really cool, and we are also leveraging them to serve our customers. Basically, next, please. So Alibaba has 4 major international B2C services or businesses. Aliexpress is mainly a cross-border business serving over 200 countries. And Aliexpress Russia is one of the top countries for Aliexpress Global. Lazada is an e-commerce platform serving 6 countries in Southeast of Asia. And Daraz is an e-commerce platform serving 5 countries in South Asia. And Trendyol is a leading e-commerce platform in Turkey. Next, please. So every e-commerce platform has 3 important pillars. Their infrastructure, and often hosted by cloud, the payment platform, and the logistics. In Alibaba Group, for the international business, those 3 pillars are supported by AliCloud, Alipay, and Cainiao. They are also the main pillars serving Aliexpress Russia's cross-border business. Next, please. Now, let's first look at AliCloud. It is the #1 cloud provider in Asia's Pacific, and #3 in the world, behind Amazon's AWS and Microsoft Azure. Today, it has about 67 availability zones and 2,800 CDN nodes worldwide. It also provides services to over 200 countries. Aliexpress Russia is using AliCloud data center in Moscow to provide services to Russian customers. And here is one of the highlights of AliCloud. Basically, we can use AliCloud to create 10,000 ECS instances in just under 8 minutes. So using AliCloud solves our scalability problems mostly. Next, please. Now, for payments, especially for cross-border payments, we use Alipay. Alipay provides payment services in over 200 countries. It has about 1 billion active users annually. And also he partnered with over 2,000 financial institutions worldwide. So even today for local to local payments, we are still using Alipay, and it's quite stable. Next, please. Now for the logistics, especially for international logistics, we use Cainiao. Cainiao has a dream to deliver any parcel anywhere in the planet in 72 hours. Of course, it is still far from that. But as of today, it has over 2 million square meters overseas warehouses. It also operates over 900 air freight routes and over 500 sea freight routes. Every month, it flies over 160 international chartered cargo flights. Every week, we have 2 or 3 cargo flights from China to Russia, mostly to Moscow, and carrying the goods, the cross-border goods, to our AER customers. Oh, OWH is overseas warehouse. Those are warehouses hosted in the Russian region. Yeah. Next, please. So here I want to talk a little bit on the Damo Academy. This part of it is a research lab, a worldwide research lab in Alibaba. It does a lot of the cutting edge researches, including machine intelligence, data computing, robotics, financial technologies, and sometimes, quantum computing as well. Aliexpress Russia uses a lot of the products and services from Damo, including its translation services and the image search capabilities, which I will also introduce very quickly. Next, please. So one of the top challenges for cross-border services is language. Majority of our cross-border sellers, they are from China. They are Chinese sellers. They upload their products and images using Chinese. In order to sell to over 200 countries, we must translate all those products into over 20 plus languages. And this capability is provided by Damo's translation platform. Today, this platform is serving over 70 plus business units from Alibaba Group. It's processing over 1 billion requests per day, and it is being able to translate between 20 plus languages with quite good accuracy. We use these translation services every day in our platform and in our daily work. When sellers upload their products, when customers contacts our sellers, when our colleagues are communicate internally with colleagues from other countries, we use those real-time translation services. Next, please. So the last one I want to talk about is our image search capabilities. This is a feature on the Aliexpress Russia app where you can take a photo of anything and it will quickly scan through our image libraries and try to find something similar on our website. It uses deep learning technologies. Today we have about 140 million products, and those products probably have over 3 billion images. And we're getting over 12 million daily requests for the image search services. And for each request, it will return the results in just under 2 seconds. The graph you see on the screen, it's just my backpack. I just took a photo of my backpack, and then in a second, it returns to me all the products that's listed on Aliexpress platform, you can see the accuracy is actually pretty high. It finds almost exact the same product as the photo. So actually, I have a YouTube link. I don't know how to play that. Is there a way? It shows the feature for this image search.
I can put it on if you like.
Okay.
Yeah. Give me like 10 seconds, please.
Sure. Okay, sure.
So can you see it?
Yes, yeah, looks good. Yeah, can just play that.
Sure.
I guess the sound doesn't matter. It just shows you how useful this feature is. All right, after this is the last one I want to show to you, and this actually ends my presentation, and thank you very much, and I can take any questions.